The moment Ryan walked into the glass-walled boardroom of Whitmore and Ellis Enterprises, he already knew he didn't belong there. His shoes were scuffed. His tie was borrowed from his neighbor. His resume had a 6-year gap that no cover letter could adequately explain. But he sat down anyway because his 7-year-old daughter Harper had packed his briefcase that morning with a sticky note that read, "Daddy, you are the bravest man in the whole world, and a man cannot disappoint a sticky note like that." He was applying for a facilities coordinator position, a modest role that paid just enough to keep the lights on and Harper in the second-grade reading program she loved so much. He had applied to 31 jobs in the past 4 months. This was number 32. Ryan had been raising Harper alone since she was 14 months old. Her mother, Danielle, had walked away not because she was cruel, but because she was broken in ways she couldn't yet name. Addiction, instability, a life spiraling faster than she could catch herself. Ryan had stood in the doorway of their apartment watching Danielle's car disappear down the street, a toddler on his hip and a silence around him so complete he could hear his own heartbeat. He had not cried that night. He had made Harper a bottle, sung her song about the moon, and decided without ceremony, without fanfare, that he would be enough. He had to be. The years that followed were not poetic. There was laundry at midnight and school pickups that made him miss overtime shifts. There were birthday cakes baked from YouTube tutorials and hairstyling lessons he learned from strangers on the internet. He worked 2 jobs for 3 years, a warehouse during the day and a grocery store on weekends, until his back gave out and he had to choose one. He chose the one closer to Harper's school. When he finally sat across from the HR panel that day at Whitmore and Ellis, he was steady. He was honest. He explained the employment gap with a quiet dignity that he had rehearsed in the mirror a dozen times. "I was a full-time caregiver," he said. "I raised my daughter. I kept the household running on a very limited income. I learned more about problem-solving, prioritization, and resilience in those years than I could have anywhere else." The HR team exchanged glances. The interview ended politely. Ryan walked out and told himself he had done his best. What he did not know, what he could not have known, was that behind the mirrored glass partition in that building, a man named Gregory Sinclair had been watching. Gregory Sinclair was the CEO of the firm. He was 61 years old, immaculately dressed, and famous in the industry for being precise, unemotional, and unreachable. He had a reputation for decisions made purely on data. He had not attended an entry-level interview in more than 20 years. He had only walked past the glass partition that day by coincidence, or perhaps by something else entirely. He had stopped walking the moment he saw Harper's photograph fall from Ryan's briefcase mid-interview. Ryan had quietly picked it up and placed it back without drawing attention to it, but not before Gregory had seen the little girl's face clearly through the glass. That evening, Gregory sat in his office long after the building had emptied. His assistant found him there at nearly 9 o'clock, still and quiet, staring at a framed photograph on his own desk. A photograph of a young woman who had once been his daughter, before the estrangement, before the years of silence, before everything fell apart. The young woman in his photograph had the same wide eyes, the same particular tilt of the chin, the same expression of concentrated thought as the little girl in Ryan's photo. The resemblance was not supernatural. It was not a miracle. It was simply one of those moments where the universe places a mirror in front of you and dares you to look away. His assistant asked if everything was all right. Gregory asked her to pull Ryan's application back from the rejection pile. The next morning, Ryan received a phone call asking him to come back in, not for the facilities coordinator position, but for a meeting with the CEO directly. He almost didn't go. He thought it was a mistake. He brought Harper to his neighbor's apartment, straightened his borrowed tie, and went. Gregory Sinclair shook Ryan's hand, closed the door, and asked him to sit. Then he did something no one in that building had ever seen him do. He placed Ryan's application on the table between them and said, in a voice quieter than his reputation, "Tell me about her. Not about the job, not about the qualifications. About Harper." And Ryan, who had spent 6 years carrying everything alone, who had learned to answer hard questions without flinching, felt something loosen in his chest. He talked about Harper the way a man talks about the one thing he has done completely and unreservedly right. He talked about her laugh, about the way she narrated her own dreams every morning over cereal, about how she had made him a card last Father's Day that said, "You are my dad and also my best friend and also my favorite chef, even though you only make pasta." He talked about the fear, the constant low-grade fear of not being enough, of the gap between what Harper deserved and what he could give. He talked about it plainly, without self-pity, the way exhausted, devoted parents do when someone finally asks. Gregory listened without interruption. When Ryan finished, there was a long silence. Then Gregory said something that Ryan would repeat for the rest of his life, at dinner tables, in quiet moments, and eventually at Harper's graduation. He said, "I had a daughter once. I was too busy building all of this." And here he gestured at the glass and steel around them, to build what actually mattered. "She's gone now. Not gone, just gone from me. And I would trade every floor of this building to sit across from her the way you just talked about yours." He offered Ryan a position that day, not as a facilities coordinator, but as part of a new community outreach program the company had quietly been developing. A role that came with regular hours, benefits, and a salary that would finally let Ryan breathe. He said he didn't fully understand why he was doing it. He said it felt like something he owed the universe. Ryan drove to pick up Harper that afternoon with the windows down and the radio up. He carried her on his back all the way up the apartment stairs. Harper asked why he was so happy. Ryan told her that sometimes people surprise you, that sometimes kindness shows up in the last place you expected, delivered by the last person you imagined, that the world is harder than it should be, but never, not once, completely without grace. Harper thought about this for a moment. Then she asked if they were having pasta for dinner. They were. If this story moved you, hit subscribe to USA Enlighten Stories so you never miss the next one. And let us know in the comments what part of Ryan and Harper's story hit you the hardest. We read every single one.